I survived their cruelty, but it followed me. Into my home. My job. My relationships. And they never knew what they really did to me. I still remember the first day it started, even though it feels like a lifetime ago. I was 14, walking into the cafeteria with my tray, trying to find a place to sit without drawing attention. I guess I already felt like an outsider. I was small, awkward, glasses too big for my face, braces that made my mouth feel like a trap. And there they were, 3 of them, sitting like sharks at the edge of a table, smirking the moment I walked past. I didn't know why they picked me. I didn't do anything to provoke them. I just existed, and apparently that was enough. The first insult was subtle. A whisper I caught as I passed. Weird glasses, bet she's a total loser. I froze, cheeks burning, and for the rest of lunch, I tried to disappear behind the tray. But it didn't stop. The whispers turned into outright teasing. They followed me in the hallways, shoved my books, laughed at my awkward attempts to join group conversations. Every day became a gauntlet. I tried to shrug it off, telling myself it was just high school stuff, that everyone went through bullying in some way. But their words, their laughter, dug into me. I'd lie awake at night, hearing echoes of those taunts in my head. Every time I looked in the mirror, I saw them, not their faces, but the way they made me feel. Ugly, stupid, invisible. There was one day I remember with almost painful clarity. They cornered me near the lockers, and one of them, his name was Kyle, I think, pushed me so hard that my books spilled across the floor. Everyone around laughed. I scrambled to pick them up, my hands shaking, my stomach twisting. Kyle leaned close, grinning. "Watch it, weirdo," he said. And then, just like that, he walked away, leaving me crumpled against the locker, my face hot and my pride shattered. I never told anyone, not my parents, not the teachers. I wanted to sometimes, but the fear of making it worse kept me silent. I felt trapped in my own body, like there was no safe place to be. I learned to smile when necessary, to nod and blend into the background, to avoid eye contact. But inside, I was screaming, fighting a storm that nobody else seemed to see. Even now, years later, those memories still hit me out of nowhere. I'll be walking down the street, and someone's laugh or a passing comment will trigger it. My chest tightens, my stomach knots, and I feel 14 again, helpless, humiliated, like the world is laughing at me. Therapy has helped, I think, but it's not like the past just vanishes. It lingers, in the small ways, in the quiet moments when I'm alone with my thoughts. There were moments of small victories, though. I remember finally standing up to one of them in sophomore year. Though standing up mostly meant mumbling something awkward as they laughed it off. Still, for a moment, I felt a flicker of control, a hint that maybe I wasn't completely powerless. But those moments were rare. Mostly, it was the exhaustion of trying to navigate a maze of cruelty that no one else seemed to notice. I found solace in little things. Books mostly. Fiction where I could disappear into someone else's story, where heroes fought battles I could only dream of winning. Music, too, blasting in my ears as I walked home, letting the lyrics wash over me and dull the edges of the day's cruelty. I learned to hide behind routines, to build a shell so hard that even the loudest jeers bounced off. Or so I told myself. But the truth is, the shell never fully protected me. It kept people out, sure, but it also kept me from feeling safe in my own skin. And that's the part that's hardest to admit. Because even now, I struggle with anxiety in situations that probably seem minor to everyone else. Parties, crowded rooms, meetings at work. I can feel the old fear creeping in, whispering that someone is laughing at me, judging me, waiting for me to falter. I don't think anyone really understands how deep this kind of pain goes unless they've lived it. You see scars on the body, maybe, but the ones in your mind? They can linger for years, subtle as a shadow at noon, always there, always whispering. I guess that's why I'm still haunted by high school. Because it wasn't just 4 years of life. It was 4 years that shaped how I see myself, how I move through the world, how I trust, how I react. And yet, I keep trying. I remind myself I'm not 14 anymore. I remind myself I'm allowed to take up space, allowed to speak, allowed to make mistakes without the world exploding with laughter. Some days I fail spectacularly. Some days I feel almost normal. And then there are the rare, quiet victories. Looking in the mirror and not hating what I see. Speaking up in a meeting, laughing without a shadow of fear lurking behind it. Those moments are small, but they're proof that I can survive this. That I am surviving this. I remember the moment I realized the bullying had followed me farther than I wanted to admit. It wasn't dramatic. No one shoved me, no one laughed in my face. But it was subtle, insidious, like a shadow stretching across my adult life. I was at my first real office job after college, sitting in a team meeting, trying to contribute, and I felt it. The same knot in my stomach, the same prickling heat behind my eyes, the same desperate desire to shrink and disappear. I could hear a colleague's laugh across the room, and suddenly, I was 14 again, in that locker-lined hallway, books scattered across the linoleum floor, heart hammering. My voice trembled as I tried to speak, the words sticking like glue. When someone interrupted me, I froze, and a part of me thought, see? You're just as pathetic as you were back then. It's ridiculous, I know, because I'm not that kid anymore. Physically, I'm stronger, taller. I dress in clothes that fit. I've learned to style my hair without fumbling in front of the mirror. But somehow, the emotional imprint was permanent. They had left fingerprints on my confidence that no amount of therapy, pep talks, or self-help books could fully erase. Dating was another battlefield. I hadn't realized it at first, but the fear of judgment, of ridicule, had seeped into my approach to relationships. I'd meet someone and a quiet, insidious voice in my head would ask, do they think you're weird? Ugly? Not enough. I'd overanalyze every text, every glance, every pause. And if something felt off, I'd retreat, vanish into the safety of solitude rather than risk being laughed at again. I lost friends, too. Not directly because of the bullying, but because of the ways I changed to survive it. I became quiet, cautious, hesitant to let anyone get too close. People interpreted it as aloofness or arrogance, and maybe it was a little bit of that, but mostly it was self-preservation. Trust became a currency I could never afford to spend freely, and even when I tried, it came with strings. Anxiety, doubt, replaying old scenarios in my head where someone would betray me or mock me. Social media was the worst. Every post, every picture, every public display of life online felt like a potential minefield. I'd craft messages, delete them, rewrite them, sometimes not post at all. I became a master of invisibility in a digital world, the same way I had been in high school. Ironic, in a way, bullied for being present, yet now scared to be present in spaces where I could choose who sees me. And the memories, they don't wait for anniversaries or triggers. Sometimes they arrive uninvited. I'll be making coffee on a quiet morning, and suddenly I see a hallway in my mind, a locker door swinging open, a laugh echoing, a shove, and I flinch. Sometimes I tell myself I'm being dramatic, that it was years ago, that I'm safe now. But the stomach knots, the pulse spike, the almost involuntary tears, they don't care about logic. I've tried to reclaim pieces of myself, though. I started therapy in my early 20s and found someone who listened without judgment, someone who didn't tell me to just get over it. I learned coping mechanisms, grounding exercises, journaling, affirmations that felt awkward at first. Slowly, I started taking up space in ways I never allowed before. I applied for jobs I thought were too big for me. I started speaking in group settings. I joined social clubs, even though my palms would sweat the entire time. Each small victory chipped away at the weight, though never completely. Family dynamics didn't make it easier. My parents, loving, well-meaning, never understood the scale of it. They said things like, just ignore them, you're strong. Or kids can be mean, that's life. And sure, I got it on an intellectual level, but emotional trauma isn't solved with logic. I wanted acknowledgement, a validation of the fear and pain I carried daily. Instead, I learned to carry it alone, stuffing it into boxes I tried not to open in public. There was a period after graduation when I completely isolated myself. I moved to a different city, changed routines, tried to shed the past like old skin. But no matter how far I ran, it was still inside me. I'd meet new people, and the reflex to shrink, to hide, to anticipate judgment, it was automatic. I couldn't shake the sense that the world was a place where I would be mocked if I showed too much of myself. Sometimes I blame myself for that. I think, why can't you just let go? Why do you let those kids from years ago still dictate your present? And then I remember, trauma isn't rational. Fear isn't rational. It's a survival mechanism, a deeply wired instinct that doesn't switch off because time passes. And realizing that doesn't make it easier. It just explains why I struggle, why I stumble in moments that seem inconsequential to everyone else. Oddly enough, there are moments that make me feel a little lighter. I started volunteering at a youth center, helping teens navigate challenges I know all too well. Sometimes I see a kid being picked on, trembling like I used to, and I kneel down, speak softly, reassure them that it's not their fault. And when I leave, sometimes I feel a strange, healing weight lift. Maybe I'm helping them more than I realized, but maybe, just maybe, I'm helping the version of myself that's still 14, still cornered by lockers, still waiting for someone to see her. I guess that's the paradox of trauma. It follows you, it shapes you, but it can also become the lens through which you help others. The same sensitivity, the same acute awareness of cruelty, the same vulnerability, it can be a strength if you allow it to be. It's messy, imperfect, painful, but it's mine. And I'm learning to navigate it, one shaky step at a time. Part of me thought moving on would mean forgetting. I thought graduating, leaving that town, leaving those hallways and lockers behind would erase the echoes. But it didn't. The memories don't fade. They just sit there quietly, like shadows behind glass, waiting for the right moment to resurface. I can be fine all day, laughing, working, interacting, and then a joke, a glance, even a song on the radio, and suddenly I'm 14 again, standing in the cafeteria, clutching my tray, feeling utterly invisible. I've tried to analyze why it still hurts. Was it the constant repetition? The public humiliation? The feeling that no adult would or could stop it? Or maybe it's because those moments were the first time I truly felt powerless, and nothing in life has hit me with that intensity since. Trauma doesn't just live in the memory. It lives in the body, in the gut, in the twitch of your hands, the quickened pulse, the almost imperceptible flinch. Even though I've built a life, friendships, and a career, anxiety lurks in the background, whispering doubts I can't always quiet. I'll start a project, a presentation, a relationship, and part of me is already bracing for ridicule. Not necessarily real ridicule. Sometimes it's imagined, but it's enough to make me hesitate, to make me question, to make me retreat. And then guilt follows. Why can't you just relax? Why are you letting this define you still? It's complicated because the past shaped me. The shy, awkward, bullied kid is still in there, a shadow sitting quietly in the corner of my mind. But I also see growth, sometimes sudden, sometimes imperceptible. I've learned to laugh at myself, to acknowledge my flaws without letting them define me. I've learned to speak up, to assert myself, to push past the instinct to shrink. And sometimes those moments of courage feel like miracles. Small, quiet miracles, but miracles nonetheless. I don't think anyone fully escapes that formative pain. I've met people who seem unaffected by high school, who glide through adulthood unscathed, confident, untethered. I envy them in a small, human way. But I also understand that our scars, visible or invisible, shape how we connect, how we care, how we notice the pain in others. There's a depth to empathy I might never have had without those years of relentless cruelty. It's not consolation, it's just life. There are times I wonder what would have happened if I'd stood up for myself, if I'd fought back or spoken out. Would it have stopped them? Would it have changed who I became? Maybe. Maybe not. But I can't rewrite the past. I can't go back and force 14-year-old me to be braver, stronger, or louder. I can only meet her now, with kindness, with understanding, with the knowledge that she survived even when it felt impossible. I've begun to focus on small victories, accepting compliments without deflecting, speaking my mind in meetings without rehearsing every word, joining social events even when I feel anxious. Tiny steps, but they're progress. I've started journaling again, writing letters I'll never send, telling my younger self that it's okay to be afraid, it's okay to be hurt, and it's okay to heal. Some days I still cry. Not just quietly in my room, but sometimes at work, sometimes in the car, sometimes for no reason I can explain. And that's fine. I've learned to let the tears come without judgment, because they remind me I'm human, that I survived, that I'm still trying. Recovery isn't linear, and no amount of willpower erases trauma overnight. It's messy, uneven, but it's real. The hardest part is realizing that healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means living with the memory without letting it control me. It means feeling the fear, the shame, the anger, and still choosing to move forward. I don't always succeed. I stumble. I shrink. But I rise again, and sometimes that's enough. I guess that's the takeaway, if there is one. High school shaped me in ways I'm still untangling, and some days it feels like it will always have a grip on me. But I keep trying. I keep moving. I keep proving, mostly to myself, that I am more than their laughter, more than their cruelty, more than the shadows they left behind. I am me. Broken, yes, but alive. Fragile, yes, but resilient. And when I feel the fear creeping in, I remind myself, that kid in the cafeteria survived. That kid in the hallways, trembling and humiliated, survived. And so did I.